Welcome to Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 289, Big or Small. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Computer Repair Podcast is brought to you by Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes Tech Bench, comprehensive partnership program for repair shops looking to boost margins and grow their business. This includes a portable tool set to help you diagnose, remediate, and secure PCs. Malwarebytes Tech Bench, built for technicians by technicians. Sign up today at malwarebytes.com/techbench. All right, let me introduce the co-hosts. We have Adam Carpenter from IT Professionals of Iowa. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
And also we have Cody Richards returning again from IT North Solutions. How you doing, Cody?
Oh, I can't complain.
Awesome. Great to have you guys back again. 2 weeks in a row. What is this? All right. Let's go ahead and go into the portion where we share a tip or story that we could learn from. And Adam, I'm going to give it to you first.
All right. So, if you're talking to your customers and you're trying to get them to do an upgrade that would benefit them, whether it's old hardware or it just doesn't meet their needs, and you keep suggesting it and they keep saying, yeah, we need to do that, you can take a sales tactic and say, okay, we need to do this. Which day works better for you, this day or this day? Because that puts them on the spot rather than saying, well, we need to do this and we need to do this and we need to do this, So if you give them 2 days that they can pick, it really puts them on the spot. So that's a tip to try.
Awesome. Great to hear that. Yeah. All right. And Cody, you're up.
So my tip today is actually a product that came in very useful this week at a customer's installation. So for you Ubiquity fans out there, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the Air Gateway, and what it basically is, it's a portable little PoE power over Ethernet injector that actually has a router built in. So if you're setting up a security camera, if you're setting up perhaps an access point, it's a great thing to use. And I mean, on top of all the Ubiquity stuff, it also works with other manufacturers if they need PoE. Recently, I purchased the U installer, and I'll put a link in the chat. And basically what that is, it's the Air Gateway installer with a built-in battery pack. So no longer do I have to, find USB to plug into to power this. It actually has a battery built in, and it lasts quite a while. It lasts about 8 hours. The great thing about it, though, is that, even if you don't use the power over Ethernet portion to power, let's say, your access point or your camera when you're doing an installation for a customer, it works great as a little router on its own. If you need some sort of wired router, there's many times where I go into an office and for my own little reasons, I need to be on my own, sort of network before I kind of dive right in there. So that's the U installer. It's a great tool. It's got, I don't know what the milliamp hour in the battery is, but it lasts quite a while, and it works for everything. I've used it with quite a few other brands for PoE or power over Ethernet equipment. And it keeps it chugging throughout the entire install. I'm grateful for it for sure.
Awesome. Great to hear. And I want to just point something out that second show, he comes out with PoE and then explains what PoE actually stands for. See, this is how to do it right, people. You don't just say the acronym and then don't explain what it is, because not everybody knows. Not everybody's in the know about what the acronyms actually stand for. And sometimes I think they don't make a lot of sense. So good job, Cody.
Learned my lesson from last week.
Little chastisement goes a long way.
Absolutely.
All right. My personal tip for this week is I read a book, which I am getting back into reading. I know we talk about this often, and we always say readers are leaders, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, readers are leaders if you put what you've learned and actually do something with it. But I just read a book, and this has been in my list for, I can't even remember how many years, but it's called The Richest Man in Babylon. And a lot of people will go, well, that sounds like a get rich quick book or something like that. No, if you understand a lot of the books that I've read over the years or that has been recommended to me, most of the books are about mindset. And the reason I bring this up is because this was a perfect example of changing a whole generation's mindset. And you have to listen to it from the beginning to the end. In some of the book, or listen to it or read it, I listen non-audible, but some of the book, it was showing it from different perspectives, which I found really, really cool. And even from a father-son perspective, in the lessons they learned, and that they all started off doing it wrong, but then they fixed it and made it better. And the reason I bring up The Richest Man in Babylon is because it started me thinking about a lot of people have this problem in their business with cash flow. And what I mean by that is usually you run out of cash before you run out of month. And so therefore your cash flow is just sucking you dry. So a lot of times people will make decisions not only based on their personal lives, but they'll make decisions in their business based on their cash flow or lack of cash flow. And that's not a good scenario to be in. So I think you can learn a lot from this book. And again, it's just about changing your mindset. And I'll say this, and a lot of people don't realize this because I've heard this over the years too, is that a lot of people will say that being a business owner, you have to have this, I don't know, almost have to be born with it. And people don't actually say that, but they almost infer that in conversations a lot of times. And I'll tell you this, I've been through a lot of different businesses. I've been through a lot of different schooling and things that I've done in my entire 48 years of life. Yeah, 40, yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's been a long time. But if you think about it, really, anything, and this counts for anything, but especially in business, business is 80% mindset and 20% skill. Okay. People ask me all the time, hey, how do you do that? I have no idea. I said, you know what? A lot of times I'm lucky and I'm just able to figure the problem out. But the reality is it's not always skill that's going to get you through, but it's going to be that mindset you have about where you are and where you want to go. And that's why I think reading books like this makes a lot of sense because it makes you think outside the box. It makes you think a little bit differently. And I think that's very, very important in business. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't have time. I don't have this. I don't have that. Hey, listen, you're listening to this awesome podcast. And the only reason I say it's awesome is because I'm doing it. But no, we bring on great guests that share the information that even I don't have. And we get information that we can use in our businesses. Well, you can get information that is literally thousands of years old that's been here for a long, long time. And that same information will help you in what you're doing today. So stretch out a little bit. And I don't know how much, I can't remember how much the book costs. I had an Audible subscription and I've had it in my library for years. And I just decided I was on a road trip, which was a great time. And I decided I'm going to listen to this. And I listened to it going there and coming back. And just a phenomenal book. Again, just about mindset. So definitely can help you in your business and personal life when it comes to money. And hey, that's what makes the world go around, no matter what you think. All right. So let's go ahead and move on into our main topic. And this was brought to us by Adam. It says, what happens when you lose two big opportunities with potential clients because you only have one tech, yourself? One 65 user company and one 125 user company. They both said they really liked the answers to their questions and what was offered, but they went with someone else because they had more techs for coverage. You can't hire more techs without the guaranteed work, but you can't get the big clients without the techs. And this is what I added. I said, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And so we're going to have a discussion around this and kind of see where people are at when you're thinking about as a solopreneur, solo tech, a one-person business, even if you have an office manager or something like that, but you're the tech in the field. How do you make it so that these companies go, yeah, I really want to go with you, and I know that I want support X amount of hours a day, and it just doesn't seem like you're going to be able to support me because you're only one person. And a lot of times that comes outside of growth and whatnot. But let's go ahead and talk about that. And Adam, I'm going to have you kick it off from there and kind of give us your thoughts on what you were thinking about when you brought this topic up.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much it. So we did have two large clients, the 65 and the 120. So the 65 user, and some of this is not understanding how we work, and maybe we didn't explain it well enough. We did go over it, but anyway. So for the 65 user one, they had a internal person that had just basically, for lack of better terms, got burnt out, wasn't keeping up with technology, and the company was falling behind, and they could see it, but he didn't care basically. And so with us using our RMM tool and our remote monitoring management, we're able to automate a lot of processes that he's doing manually, so we can do a lot larger workload as one tech. And we tried to explain that, but they weren't comfortable with that. So they wanted, in their mind, they were going from the same thing, one person to one person. And so they thought they were going to run into the same issues. But I have no doubt we could have handled that. For the larger one, they actually had a managed services client. They were doing hardware as a service and everything with them. But that company, the MSP, the managed service provider, was stuck in their old ways. There seems like a lot of that going on around here. Like, they weren't offering Office 365 or any cloud solutions or anything like that. And this is a large provider around here. So that was surprising to hear. And we had several meetings with them, and they're, a multi-million-dollar company. So their time, they don't just waste time talking to people, so they were very happy with what we were offering them, and I knew if we brought on that 120 person client, we were going to have to bring somebody on. So we were just about to start interviewing to bring somebody on in order to have another person, because we're right on the edge. We almost need another person, but most days we don't. So I can't comfortably bring somebody on and not know the work will be there, So, I mean, we're kind of stuck there. I guess what we're looking at is we're just going to have to keep bringing on smaller clients until we get to that point. It just sucks that you have those large clients that can take you almost, I guess, to the next level, you could say, in your business, but they shy away because you don't have the other tech. So that's kind of where we're at.
See, I think part of this too is about some of this is almost based on a facade, because in their minds, I don't think people really get, like you said, or understand what it is we exactly do. Again, there's only so many people to go around. And if you look at your average computer repair business or MSP or whatever you want to call it these days, you're going to look at a lot of businesses that are doing in the $1 million range. They're at maybe 5 technicians, maybe sometimes 6, 7, 8. It just depends. Every business is a little bit different, which is cool. But here's the thing. As you grow, there's still only so many people to go around. And guess what? Everything is based on a ticket and a priority and how it is set up in the system when it comes in. Whether you're one person, you can handle X amount, or you're 10 people and you can handle X amount. I don't really think it's based so much on the size of how many end users you have. It's all going to depend on how many customers you have altogether. And I know John Dubinsky's talked about this before, and he's gone through many iterations because he's a one-person show, and he's went from having, and I can't remember the number, but X amount of customers, and then cutting out some of the customers that were a little less desirable. The problem is that worked for a minute until he got to the point where other people that were still his customers were recommending him because of the work he does. And so he ended up growing exponentially from that point also. So it's kind of, you get in this weird way that I don't know how to break out of that. But I want to hear what Cody has to say about his thoughts on taking care of larger businesses.
So with me, I do actually have a couple larger businesses that I do manage. I mean, one of the things that's obviously important when you're at least going through the onboarding process is I mean, if you're a one-man show, you need to be upfront and honest about what they should expect. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't manage their 60 computers in their office. That doesn't mean that at all. But I need to set them up with the expectation that, hey, I am a one-man show. Most of the time, I'm either at work or I'm with a customer. So if you call and pick up, if you call me, I'm not going to pick up the phone. It's going to go to voicemail. If you email me, you'll likely get a response much quicker than doing that. And I tell my customer that. I tell my in this case, it's actually an entire plaza. And I just there's quite a few clients in that plaza that I manage. But for this one business that I deal with, like I said, they have I believe that they have 61 machines, and it's they see me going in, they see me remoting in or running my RMM and doing patches, software installation, whatever I need to do. They're able to see that happens. So I haven't told them that there's anything that that I can't do. And when something does come up, so there obviously are times where more than one person is going to be needed or something like that. And I just farm that work out. For example, I don't pull cable. I have pull cable. I'm very much able to pull cable, but I don't generally. I won't cable a whole office. I'll farm that out. I'll have someone else come in and do that. And by doing that frees me up during the onboarding process. And they have an experience of what I do. So if we need to bring in outside guys and they're okay with that, then we'll go down that route. But I always set the expectation, and I don't necessarily compromise myself when I'm going in. If there's something that I can't do, I'll let them know. And I haven't gotten to the point yet. But obviously, if it comes to the point where I need to offboard someone, either because they've grown, because I have had a couple businesses that have grown exponentially, I'm still able to manage them. But if for some reason, in the next 2 quarters, 3 quarters, they once again doubled their growth, it is something that I'd have to sit back and take a look at. But I think setting the expectation is key, particularly when you're dealing with a larger business client. And by setting the expectation, you're bringing confidence not only to the customer, but you're bringing confidence to yourself when you're actually taking a look and actually assessing what you can do.
It's good. Now, Adam, let me ask you, from the standpoint of the customer that was basically wanting to replace an internal IT person, what were they missing at this point that they were looking outside of that? Were they actually looking for more bodies, or because I'm already seeing from the beginning, you're going to see you can save some money versus having an internal person and having an outside company. The outside company is generally going to be cheaper.
Sure. So money wasn't an issue in this case. The person really was burnt out and didn't care about his job anymore. And they wanted to have somebody that had a little larger presence. Somebody that was already managing multiple businesses and had more experience with what was going on in the industry, in the IT industry, and because they knew they were falling behind on equipment. They were using really old equipment. They weren't using cloud solutions either. It was kind of the same situation in both, really, in that regard. So they just wanted somebody that was familiar with current solutions, and they wanted to replace what they had. They did know that they would probably save money outsourcing, but that wasn't a concern. One angle we looked at in that situation was, also he wasn't getting work done. Like, there were tickets stacking up. He couldn't get everything done. But that was because he was doing everything manually. He had no automation in place. He's managing 3 locations with a total of 65 users, so updates and firmware and everything was manual. Whereas if we go in, we automate all of that. So what we find is we spend, probably a month working with new clients, getting everything to where we want it to be. And then after that, it's pretty quiet because we're taking care of things in the background. But so one thing that other people can try, and what we tried in this situation is, well, if he's not getting his work done because it's too much, we'll partner with you guys and we'll take the load that he can't handle. So we tried that avenue as well. But then we found out that no, they really did want to replace him. So that's an option. It just didn't work for us, because, one of the things that they were having trouble with is they knew that there was going to be some tension because he had been with the company for 30 years. People liked him, but he wasn't getting his job done, and that was holding the company back. And so they made the decision that they needed to do something else. But, that may be a situation you come across where, yeah, this guy's good, he does a good job, but he can't keep up with the workload anymore. So you may offer some outsourced help in that regard.
Now, let me ask you this, Adam. So this situation that you were going into was, was this person kind of to the point where it was, doing their job was neglectful to the company, or was he cooperative, with you going in to kind of take over? Or I don't even know if he was still there at that point.
Yeah, so he was there. And it was an interesting situation because he didn't know we were there or why we were there. So they hadn't let him know at this point.
Okay.
They were trying to figure out a solution to put in place before they let him know. Even though he'd been there 30 years, they didn't know how he was going to handle it. So they wanted somebody that could come in immediately and just take over. And so his office was right next door to the office we had that we had the meeting in. So yeah, it was kind of a weird situation, but I can certainly understand from the business point on making sure you had somebody to cover the situation before you possibly had a disgruntled person leave. So he wasn't aware. We didn't talk to him.
Right.
Wow. That's yeah, that's, and I can just imagine. I'm thinking 30 years. It's probably about be where I'd at. And yeah, at that point, I'd probably be like, yeah, I don't really care.
Well, and we've all heard the story of the guy that did that and left and destroyed everything. So
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had to walk in behind some people and even friends of mine and lock them out, even though I knew for a fact they weren't going to do anything, but it's what you got to do. So in that particular situation though, so they just weren't getting the jobs done. It could have been done internally. They were thinking that if they get a larger company, the problem is anything with a help desk, and that could be anything out there that uses a help desk. How fast do most of us in any type of scenario get helped? I mean, it's there's not a lot of stuff that's instantaneous. So again, that's why I say it's kind of a facade, because people think that, oh, well, you should just be able to do this, or you should just be able to do that.
So,
and there's always the option. I mean, you could just lie to the customer. I mean, I guess, and tell them, oh yeah, we have 4 or 5 techs, we can handle this. But that's not the way we operate. We tell them straight up, this is how it is. I'm the tech. We outsource some things. We don't do cabling either. We have people that do that. We have some people we can call for more advanced networking if needed, but they're not another one of me sitting in the office waiting for something to happen. Those are things where we have to schedule out. They're a separate company, and we're open with them right up from the start. We're one tech, we're looking to grow, so we don't mislead them at all.
Well, and I like your scenario that you painted that basically says, yeah, I'm one tech, but it's kind of like we talked about with the chicken and the egg. If you were to land a couple of those contracts and you got to the point, see, I know you're intelligent enough. You get to a certain point and you go, yep, we're going to have to hire somebody. Yep, I'm going to have to train them. Yep, I'm going to have to actually pay them a decent wage. Yeah, all the things that most business owners don't want to do for whatever reason. I don't know why. The only reason I say that is because I see it all the time. It's very frustrating to see people that are frustrated about something they can fix, but they won't take the time to fix it. Anyways, side tangent. So from your perspective, though, when you're looking at this situation, I'm not really sure how much different you could paint it. Yeah, I definitely am not going to lie. I'm going to go, we're going to take care of you to the best of our ability and in a timely manner. Again, how many companies actually have functioning SLAs? Service level agreements. Yeah, gotcha. All right. So, but anyways, how many of those people out there actually have those? Because I know most shops, and there's a lot that have employees that don't have those with their business customers, because there's not a whole lot you can guarantee when it comes to this stuff. Prime example, if I ever go to do a project on anything, my wife will look at me and say, how long do you think that's going to take? And whatever I say, she quadruples it. And you know what?
And she's probably right more often than not.
99% of the time, she is absolutely right, because I think, oh, yeah, I can go in there. I can do this. I can do that. Yeah, not foreseeing the problems that pop up. And especially when we're talking about electronics, software, these things that don't want to function well together, Windows updates, ISPs, your internet service providers. I mean, there's a lot of things that falls under something we don't have control over necessarily. So we just deal with it the best we can. So from that standpoint, again, it's an education that we need to somehow educate these companies that, maybe you do need a large company, but not for the reasons you're saying. So, because we can do the same things and we're going to do it to the best of our ability, which anybody's going to tell you the same thing, right? But I've heard large companies losing business like this because they couldn't even keep up with the stuff that was going on.
So for that 120 employee company, like I said earlier, they were working with a large provider in our area, and their opinion of it was, one, they were stuck in their old ways. They didn't want to do anything cloud related. And two, they're to the size point where customer service is lacking. And I've seen that in almost any company. The larger you get, the worse customer service is, because nobody knows what the other person's doing. Absolutely. And they were starting to see that. So they wanted to go with a smaller company to get a more personal service, but a little larger than just one person.
So that's something that is, it brings up a very good point. Many of my customers enjoy the service that I give, because I might not always respond right away, within 10 minutes, but I generally have a faster response than, prior experiences, whether they were with another company before, whether they were, different MSP maybe. I always try to respond as quickly as I can, whether it's an email, whether it's a voicemail, and people like that. People like that. I'm not necessarily the only person that knows what's going on. But, for example, there's a real estate office that I manage. The less people that knows about whatever's going on, or whatever information is floating around, particularly, if I'm being shown something or trying to troubleshoot something with someone, that real estate office has said they don't want, 4 different sets of eyes on what they're doing. Particularly if I am troubleshooting with someone. So, I mean, if you can leverage that to your advantage, certainly use it. I don't think it's impossible to, every business that you come across, I don't think it's impossible to kind of spin it. And I don't like using the word spin, because it almost sounds deceitful, but, package yourself, package your company, package your brand, as you wish. And, if you can make it work for that customer, like I said, just set that expectation and let them know that it works. I mean, it's already something, whether you have one person, whether you have 5 people, I could say as a one-person tech, whenever I'm talking about my company, whenever I'm talking about IT North Solutions, I use the word we, because I'm one tech. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be the only person that's actually fixing whatever's going on, whether I'm going into a business or whether I'm doing it remotely. But to say that I'm the only person involved in the business is not true. I get help all the time from my girlfriend, whether that's doing accounting. So for me to say we, when I'm referring to myself just doing the technical support, isn't untrue. And most of the time it doesn't get questioned. I like to use the word we, obviously, because it sounds like I maybe have 1 or 2 techs, or, it builds it up. But if they ask, I've had a customer say, you use the word we, but I've only ever seen you come to my establishment. And I say, yes, because I'm the only tech. I'm the owner. I'm the operator. I am the tech. But, if you were to call the office, you might get, you might get my girlfriend, you might get, actually, she'd be the only person that you got. But I can confidently myself use the word we when I'm referring to my one-man operation, so to speak.
Now, I had a similar, because I used to use the word we, and then I realized I didn't have a mouse in my pocket, and I decided that you know what, people wanted to see me anyways. So, especially on the residential side. So for me, I had to change a lot of my verbiage and change it from we to I, because it is me, and I agree. I don't think it matters either way. But when we're talking about perception and what companies think you can or cannot do for them, how do we get them to a point where they understand we're going to be able to take care of you, even though there's only one or a few of us? There's a lot of single operations out there that use subcontractors for hardware, different things that need to be done. But somehow we've got to get that across to the customer. And I think, Adam, you've told us a couple scenarios where you've basically explained to them, and they kind of sort of saw it, but not really. That be a fair assessment?
Yeah. If because they're used to having either somebody in the one case they're used to having somebody on site, in the other case they were used to having a team of people available when they called. So there were different situations. But the smaller company didn't know how an MSP worked. They don't know or they don't understand the automation as much as you try to explain it to them. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's tough, because you're in that situation where, again, you don't really want to hire somebody unless you've got the business to support it. And so but you stay at this point. But again, it's about education. And I think if you let businesses know out there what you're capable of, you let them know, hey, okay, if this doesn't work out or whatever, or you want to, give us a try down the road, or maybe even set up like a trial basis. Hey, try this for a few months. See if you're getting the results that you want. If not, we can hand this off to whomever.
So for the larger company, they did directly tell us that they were very impressed with our packages, how we explain things, the whole situation. And they directly told us, look, if you add another tech or two, let us know. Our contract isn't that strict. We can move. We would like to work with you. Having them say that is one thing. I bring on the two techs. You don't know what the situation is going to be.
Right.
95% of the time, I can handle the workload with zero issues. Rarely do I have to be in two places at one time. When I do, they're understanding, look, I have this whole company's down, or this one person can't print type of thing, so I can handle that workload. It's fine. If we add another 60 or 100 user company, that's a different story, and I want to get to that point. I'm trying to grow. We want to add another tech or two, if nothing else, just for backup or vacation or what have you, so yeah, we're just kind of stuck. What do you do? So.
It's definitely a tough scenario to be in. And I'm not sure that there's what I am sure of is there are companies out there that I think will take the chance and try out a smaller company. And especially if the ones, like you said, even the smaller one that doesn't quite understand what it is that we do, maybe they'll see something in the future that will direct them back to you and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead, and sounds like you know what you're doing. It sounds like you had the right answers, and you're going to be able to take care of us. Because really, you're right. When you think about these scenarios and you think about, okay, 65 users, are all 65 users crashed at one point? No. There's Joan in accounting, there's, Bob in sales, and okay, so this happens, you triage, you take the import. Is there ever a scenario where, especially in a larger company like that, I know some of the larger companies I've dealt with in the past, it's not like that's the only computer they had. They absolutely could move to another machine. And yeah, it sucks and it's not fun, but it is possible. So they can maintain what they're doing for a period of time before their stuff gets up and running.
So one thing I had heard, oh, sorry, one thing I had heard is follow up with them in a year and see how things are going. So we're coming up on a year for that 65 user company. So we're going to follow up and make sure that all of their expectations are being met. If they are great, if not, maybe we can offer them a 3-month trial or something like that.
That'd be awesome. That's really good. And that is great advice, whoever gave that to you. It's yeah, because you never know. Things do change year to year all the time. They change in our lives. It is change in general. All right. So go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it might be a case that the company you're dealing with just doesn't know any better. There's a small, what was once a smaller marine company that I deal with that has since grown to 20 employees. So I took them on at the end of their growth, and they had a hardware agreement with Dell, so all of their hardware came from Dell. But as for their tech, they called up the big red paper supplier company, and that company would send out a tech, and you're basically it's just a retail technician. You don't know who you're going to get. I have no idea how it worked out for so long, but it was completely inconsistent going into it. And at the end of it, I sat down with them. I did my onboarding, and I said, "Look, how did you survive up to this point?" And they're like, "Oh, we kind of just go with the flow, and if something goes down, and we just kind of deal with it at that point." And I said, "Well, far be it for me to tell you how to run your business, but that's not what should be happening. When your server goes down and it's a week before someone gets out to actually even address it, that tech still comes out. He still has to call Dell and get the replacement. So you're waiting another couple days for Dell to either ship a part or ship the server. And Dell would do the on-site tech, so that's fine. But I think, like I said, it just comes down to maybe it's an older company, and they just haven't had a time to kind of integrate technology, so to speak, into their daily operations. It's obviously something that can benefit. Adam made a great point with the guy that was doing everything manually. They're just getting by doing things manually, and they don't know any different. So it's up to you to explain why this is needed, why it's important that when your infrastructure goes offline, why it can't be out for 10 days, because I honestly don't think they would have known, and I don't think they would have realized. They would have kept calling up the same one-off technician, paid $250 a visit, $250 an hour, whatever they were doing, and not have some sort of agreement in place. And to you and I and Adam and all the other listeners, we think that's absolutely ludicrous. Like, you can't run in this chaos. But to them, they haven't had anyone tell them, no, that's not how you do this. This is how you do this. This is how you make sure that everything's running. This is what happens when something breaks down.
All right, let me teach you kids a little bit of something here. Because most of these businesses that you're talking about are usually run by people older than me. And so that generation that's just a little bit past me, when they look at things totally different. And they didn't have to deal with this stuff 30 years ago. It's new stuff to them. And most of them, they're on their way out anyways. They don't want to learn it. They don't want to, so it's part of our job to paint it in a scenario that makes sense to them. And I don't even have a surefire 100% way to do that. You just have to, and I think it comes back to building a rapport with people in other businesses. And so you build that rapport. Hey, we're here if you ever need us. Understand this is not a great fit right now, but down the road, if something comes up, let us know and we'll hop in and help take care of the problem, or, whatever. Because obviously, if the company is willing to pay money to get this stuff done, they're going to figure out one way or another whether something's working or not. But you're right, Cody. I mean, people look at stuff like if it takes forever for a computer to turn on, they don't care. Like, yeah, that's what it's always done. That's what it's done for the last 5 years. That's all I know.
They've gotten used to it. Go make a cup of coffee, come back 5 minutes later, and it started up.
Exactly. So, to them, that's the way they see it. So if you can paint a scenario that shows them, no, we could have you up and running quicker, or here's one of the things. Hey, yeah, we provide Dell servers, or we're a Dell partner, and because of that, we're going to not only get a server, but we're going to get a 3-year, 5-year on-site contract. So if something breaks down, Dell can swoop right in with the part, boom, 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 get it back up and running, and they're on their feet in a short period of time. And that's where it's our job. I don't try to, if I have something wrong with my car, even though I know absolutely how to work on it, I don't, because I'll just take it to the shop and go, yeah, it's your problem. You deal with it. And they'll sit there, and I don't really care what's wrong with it. I just want it fixed. How do you get it fixed? And in what amount of time is it going to take to get that thing fixed? And that's what I'm really looking for. And so it's like that in every other industry. It's just, this one's just a little bit weird when it comes to that.
So one thing I've seen that can help, I guess this is more of a sales thing really, is how much downtime do you have per year? What I have found is if the company is less than 5 people, they don't have a clue. They don't care. If they're more than that, you have more, like a CFO, for example, that, well, it's your job to know these types of things, what downtime is costing you. So if you can show them, or they've never thought about it, I've run into that too. You'll have a small company and you say, well, how often are you down? How much over the year? I don't know. I've never thought about it. And then you go down that road and you give them examples and you can say, well, you're losing this much money per year by not doing this, which is more than what we're going to charge you per year, sometimes.
Right.
Depending on what, if they're running really old hardware, it's like you said, most people don't know any better. They're doing it the way they've been doing it for the last 20 years. So.
Right. That's good. So I think we painted a scenario of what can be thought about, what can be done in this particular situation. And it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. I don't know that there's any cookie-cutter way to approach this. There will be business owners out there that will, in this industry, that will tell you, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. But I think it becomes on an individual basis. And again, if you look at how businesses are built 100 years ago, today, it's the same. It's about relationships that you have. And if you're not going to treat these things with relationships inside these businesses, it's only going to go so far. And then you have to rely on other things, whatever that might be. But I think a lot of times you can get a lot done just by the solid relationships you have, not only inside the community, but just keeping in touch with different businesses that you want to be a part of. And, just being there as a solution-oriented person makes a big difference, because a lot of people are they're going to paint here's all the things we do, which again, the customer really doesn't care. What pain points do I have, and what can you fix for me so that I no longer have some of these pain points? Now, I didn't say all, because you're not going to be able to take care of all the pain points that a company has, but over time, you can streamline it and get it better than it was when they first started with you. And I think that's a lot of times what a lot of people are looking maybe for this night and day transformation, but that's not really how this works. It takes time, effort, and usually money.
So, Jeff, let me ask you, because you're obviously a one-man operation yourself. As far as I know, you operate fairly similar to what I do, work full time. Have you ever been disadvantaged or, perhaps turned down because you've been forthcoming with the customer? You've told them that you're a one-man operation, and they're just like, do you have a specific example where they're just like, nah, I just don't think you can meet our needs?
No, and because I deal with a lot smaller companies, you're looking at it probably 5 or less in the office. And so generally this is bad. I should try to turn away more business than I try to bring in, to be honest with you. So I will sit there and tell them why they shouldn't hire me and why we're probably not a good fit. And I can't be Johnny on the spot. And it doesn't work that way. I'm very good at what I do, but you're going to have to deal with those inconsistencies. So from my business standpoint, as a small business, dealing with small businesses, no, not really. I don't really feel the need to go for those. I'm not big like Adam and go for those big 65 and 125, 120 user companies. But again, to be fair, I mean, if I was doing this full time, that's probably what I would be doing also. But I take on what I can do after hours when I have the time. And for my business customers, they're perfectly fine with that. It works for them. And again, I don't care who you are, even large companies. I work for a very large corporation called Ford Motor Company. And when it comes to IT infrastructure, there really are no emergencies. Up until, what was it? Last year, maybe? Might have been last year. We were still running a lot of our robots on Windows XP. So there you go. I mean, they weren't networked, so it didn't really, I mean, they were networked internally, but they weren't networked out to the internet or anything like that. So it didn't really matter. But right now we're having an issue where everything's gotten moved to Windows 10 and the software was specifically written to run these robots. Doesn't like Windows 10 all the time. So, you still have those issues. And again, we found workarounds. We do things that work to make things work until those things will fall in place and work to our benefit. But yeah.
So the reason why I brought that up, the reason why I asked that is because I think it's fairly easy for someone who's starting out, or even companies that are experienced, to when they get that call from that 50 endpoint client, or they get that call from that 100 endpoint client, it's very easy to say, absolutely, yes, I'll see you next week. We'll be there. We'll figure it out. And then, in the back of your head, some part in the back of your head, you go, oh, this is a large company. I have a lot of time to plan this out and figure it out and learn on the way. But if you don't know your limit, like you obviously know your limit. You know that, hey, when I'm going over 5 people, let's maybe try to start to take a look at this. Not that I can't do it, but do I want to do it? Do I want to be, do I want to be on this phone with this person Sunday, right before I have something else to do, right before I have to sit down for this podcast? Or can I be selective? And you obviously are. You're turning away business, so you know your limit. But like I said, for people starting out, it's very easy to get caught up in that. I know for myself, there was at least 1 or 2 clients that I stopped to sit down and think about. And, I said to them, hey, listen, I don't think I'm your guy for this. And it's not because I can't do it. It's just that I don't feel comfortable doing this undertaking with the resources that I have, with the amount of time that I have to, actually deal with you. And I think even though you're turning away the business, that customer is never going to forget about you, because you still had a conversation, you still had a dialogue with them. And you know what? If for some reason your paths ever crossed in the future, whether you call them up, whether they call you up and say, hey, look, it's been 3 years. Have you grown since then? I think it's at least one thing that will help to keep you in the back of their mind. And that's not always a bad thing, particularly if you are looking to grow your business, or, you are looking at long-term visions.
And I think the other thing too is a lot of times you have to take an assessment of what you're dealing with. Just for a company to say, we're a 50 user company or 60 user company or whatever that might be. What types of things do they have in play? Do they have servers in place? How many servers are they? Do they have different locations in place where you're going to need to network between the locations and make everything work together? There's a lot of things that, because, to have, quite honestly, to have 50 workstations, I don't know that it's a whole lot different than 5, to be honest with you. They're workstations. There's not too much to them. They crash, you pull them off, you re-image them, you do it, you move on.
So for that 120 user company, now that was just the internal They're a structural engineering company, so they have a lot more people out in the field that don't use computers, don't need them for their job. But internally, most of those computers, most of the work was within Office 365. They really didn't have anything special. So, I mean, the size of that wasn't a problem. I mean, and it's like you said, how often is everybody going to be down? If that's the case, it's more of a networking issue anyway. But they just weren't comfortable with that. So, but those were the things that told me, yeah, we can handle this. But yes, we should have another person. I don't fault these companies at all. I respect their decision because it's their company that they're concerned about. Making sure that they can run their business, which is fine. We just need to get to that point where they go, yeah, let's do it.
See, I guess I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it from a standpoint of if I'm sitting across the desk from you, Adam, and we're having this conversation and you're saying the right things, and I know you're not just full of yourself, and that wouldn't work for me because, I am kind of full of myself. But from that standpoint, if I'm looking at you and there's a trust built there, and I'm thinking, you know what? Yeah, you're saying this is something you can do. It doesn't seem like you're snowballing me at all. You're saying the right things. Let's do this on a trial basis and see if this is going to work. What's the worst thing that could happen? And, from that standpoint, because again, you're only going to get so much done no matter how many employees you have. It's one thing to sit there and I know there's certain businesses out there that, they have one person on staff that all they do is watch their RMM, right? Because that's, they've got X amount of endpoints. Well, then again, I know guys, we won't mention any names, but my other co-host, basically, has almost 1,000 endpoints and deals with them all by himself. So most other companies that even have employees don't deal with that many endpoints a lot of times. So, when I look at things like that, I think about it differently. So it's not that I would fault a company for not taking a chance on you, but at the same time, I just need the problem solved. And I guess, they're looking at it from a perspective of lack of knowledge or ignorance. They're ignorant about what it is we actually do. And that's common. Now, part of that is probably, again, I faulted on us and how we portray this business because either we're superheroes or magicians or something, but every one of us can count a scenario where we go, and I've had customers ask me, and I'm just point blank honest with them. You go, hey, how'd you fix it? I have no clue. I did, X, Y, Z, and one of those things worked. I don't know what it was because this is a frustrating problem. And they're like, you know what? They don't care. They just pay the bill and go, here you go. Thanks. Have a great day. So that's just my perspective. Again, hopefully we can somehow educate these companies a little bit better to understand what it is we do and how even a one person or a small shop can actually take care of their needs. And here's, that's the other thing too. You can usually tell in a conversation, like if you were sitting there, Adam, and you were sitting there sweating and you look like you had this look on your face, like you were constipated or something. And I would be able to tell that you go, yeah, you're not real comfortable with this. That's going to be a clue. But you're sitting there, if you're Joe Cool and you're just sitting back and going, yep, we can do this. And I think we can take care of this. And we can look at this over time, and blah, 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 blah. From that perspective, I go, yeah, that's my person there. So, but yeah, definitely let us know when you do reach back out to the company and see if things are going well for them. Maybe they are. And, maybe you're just another couple companies away where somebody's going to take that chance. And because I don't think you should ever get into a situation where you don't have enough work for another tech. I've seen way too many people do that because this is another rabbit hole. I'm sorry. But here's a problem. A lot of people don't want to pay a tech a living wage, even if they don't know nothing. And here's the thing. I just want to know that you're dedicated to working, showing up on time, and doing your job to the best of your ability. Your skills, I could care less about. Because guess what? You're never going to be as good as me, chances are. At least that's what I'm thinking in my head, even though it's not true. But the reality is it doesn't matter because they can be taught from ground zero. And yeah, if you want a tech to stick around, you got to pay them a living wage. If you're not willing to pay them a living wage, if you know, I've seen a lot of these people will pay the amounts of money they want to pay. Dude, I can go to Home Depot and get that same money and stand around most of the day doing nothing. So you think I'm going to come work for you and drive all over the world and take care of stuff in the shop and do? You're nuts. You got to pay, right? And so there's that. I would never tell anybody to bring on an employee before they're ready. Here's what I say is you need to be living on about 4 hours sleep, and I'm being overly facetious, but you need to be at your wit's end as far as you've gotten as much as you possibly can handle. Then you pull on an employee when you physically cannot handle it anymore, and you need to get your sleep and all that kind of stuff. So you need to do that. And then once you pull that employee on, understand that, yeah, part of your money is going to go towards that employee. But now you can go into your business and you can actually continue to expand it. So that short-term pain on what you're going to pay that employee will go away in a short period of time if you do it right. And that's really what you have to look at.
And that's just it. We're nowhere near that point where I'm not getting sleep, or, we have several hundred endpoints, and it's very rarely a problem where I have to be in two places at once. Now, there's a lot of times where it would be nice, like I said, vacation or sick days or whatever, where nope, you're going to work whether you like it or not type of thing, so it would be nice for that, or for large projects, so for that 120 person company, they were doing hardware as a service with their other vendors, so everything had to be replaced up front, so it'd be nice to have the hands for that. And yeah, you can do subcontractor things, but if they're not working for your company, chances are they're not going to do things exactly the way you want, or you just don't know. And another thing that may have caused us to have slower growth than some other is we're very happy that we're a debt-free company. We've never taken on debt in order to expand or grow or anything like that. So, and we're going to keep it that way. So yeah, I mean, until we get to the point where we know for sure that we have the monthly recurring revenue to bring somebody on, it's just not an option. So we're not going to put ourselves, or we're not going to put them in that position either, where we bring somebody on, they're depending on that paycheck, or their family is, or whatever, and then you go, oh well, a month later, well, we didn't get this job we thought we would, because we certainly could have brought somebody on saying, oh well, we think we're going to get this contract, and then not, we're not going to put ourselves or them in that position.
So. You actually brought up a good point. When going in and presenting yourself to a company, and when talking about what you can offer the customer, setting that expectation obviously is great. But for something, you talked about your company being debt free. You haven't run a deficit. I run in the same way. The only way I can accomplish that right now is, when I go over a proposal with the customer and there's $10,000 worth of equipment. I mean, I feel that you should be charging equipment, up front regardless. I mean, there's techs out there that okay, we'll just invoice them a month later. When I'm dealing out with amounts in the tens of thousands of dollars, for new server equipment, new switches, whatever they need, I have to tell them, I have to say, look, obviously I don't have 10 grand of cash just laying around. I can put it on a line of credit, sure. But at some point, I'm going to have to explain to that customer before the work is done that, hey, listen, I need this equipment cash up front. Inevitably the customer will ask why. And I can either say, this is how I do my business. This is the way I do business. Or I can say, I'm still starting up. We're a smaller company, even though, my company, I have 165 corporate endpoints, business endpoints, and 39 residential endpoints. I know what that means to me in my eyes, but explaining that to the customer, they're not always going to see it the same way. So, it's obviously going to be a problem with one-man operations, cash flow, people starting up one-man operations, it's very easy to say, hey, I have this $10,000 line of credit. They'll pay me later or anything like that. And we all know how that goes, because we all sit down and for our one-man operations, we inevitably have to call our clients at the end of the month, or we have to send out those invoice reminders saying, hey, did you get my invoice? Because I know I sent it to you. So yeah, the running with no debt thing, I thought that was an amazing point because I run the same way, and I don't ever intend on being in the red. I'd rather stay black or green if I can.
That's good. And you guys both brought up a great point, because that is, in my opinion, that is the only way to run your business properly. I don't feel that, especially in this business, I don't feel you need to go into debt. And the other thing too is, if you look at, I probably have a price point, and usually hard drives, screens, stuff like that, stuff I keep on stock. I don't necessarily worry about that stuff because I've got the customer's property. But quite honestly, anything over $100, no, they're paying for it. If it's a router, if it's wireless access point, doesn't really matter what it is, a switch, whatever. That is, regardless of how much money that I have that I can throw at that, it doesn't really matter. You need to have a buy-in from the customer, and I think that is just part of the buy-in process. And here's the other thing, and again, this goes back to, I've said this before, but John Dubinsky taught me this when I was pulling on a business client a couple years ago, and he basically said, you know what? He goes, go in and do an assessment and charge your hourly rate, which I did. I went to the customer and, again, I tried to tell them why they didn't want me, but whatever. So I basically said, listen, we're going to come in and I'm going to spend 2 to 3 hours doing assessment of what we got going on, because you have no idea. And I'll tell you, I think I spent 2 hours, did an assessment, charged my hourly rate. And when I walked in to do the install, and this was just a router, a switch, a wireless access point, no big deal, putting some software on some computers, should have been no problem. Now, I estimated right because I listen to my wife and I overestimate what I actually need. And that way I never run into a problem. But they were paying me hourly regardless of how much time it took me anyway. They were getting an estimate. I'm not giving you a for sure. This is an estimate. That's why it's estimated. It's going to take me this long if I run in, no problems. And so all the things that I missed, even doing that 2-hour assessment, I can't imagine walking in that day and not having done the assessment on a small business like that. I can't imagine doing a large business. I'd be like going, yeah, we're going to be here for the next 4 weeks. Not sure when we'll be up and running. I would never want to put myself into that situation. So, it just comes down to either they want to pay for your time in doing the things that you do, or they don't. And if they don't, that's probably your first clue to walk away. You don't have to have that customer in order to grow your business. There's literally thousands and thousands of people out there that need IT support in some form or fashion. And you've just got to find the ones that are going to fit your type of business. And that's definitely the way to go. Like I said, debt free is, that way you're not worrying about, at the end of the month, you're not worrying about all that stuff. So.
Yeah. So for us, we just tell them straight out from the start. Our company policy is we charge for hardware and software up front. Labor we can do after we're done with the work. In 8 years now, everybody just pays it all at once. They don't want to worry about paying for hardware and software, waiting until the job's done, and then paying for labor. We just, here's the invoice. This is what it's going to be, and they've never had a problem with it. The example I use is you can't go buy something on Amazon and not pay for it until it shows up, or
good point.
Or go to Walmart, Best Buy, name your big box store. You can't just go there and say, okay, I'm going to take this home and then, or order it and pay when it shows up. COD doesn't really happen anymore.
Right.
So luckily for us, we've never had a problem, but that's the example I use when somebody says, well, don't they question you? No. That's how pretty much most services work. You pay when you get it. So
I agree. And like I said, I've never had anybody balk at that. What, it could be a workstation, it doesn't matter. It could be a few $100s, but point is they pay for it up front. And you're right on the invoice. And a lot of times they just want to, hey, how many hours are you going to take? And, even if you overdo it or whatever, you know, you can always send them another invoice after that. Again, it's an estimate how long it's going to take me. But when I step out of my office, it's an hourly rate, no matter how you look at it. So, all right. I think we've covered a lot of stuff when it comes to this. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. And we've got a couple of emails to answer. If you guys would help me out. Let's see. If you want to support what we're doing here and you want to be a part of this great community by getting involved in a secret Facebook group, you can just support this show by going to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And I want to thank our newest Patreon supporter, Brendan Hope. And I want to thank all of our current Patreon supporters for your continued support. We really appreciate what you're doing here. It makes life a little easier being able to pay for things that we pay for on a monthly basis to bring you this podcast. I know it looks like I just sit in my office and play with toys, but there are costs that is incurred in podcasting, whether you know that or not. So anyways, all the help, we just appreciate all the people that are contributing. And that also gets you involved in a secret Facebook group, which I like because I kind of wanted a scenario where we could bring a safe environment of people, business owners, technicians working together, coming up with solutions, asking questions, being a part of the group in a safe forum that nobody's going to laugh at them. Nobody's going to make fun of them, even down to the simplest questions, because we've all started at that point where you know what? Here's the thing. I know for sure the one thing is that I don't know everything. And I learn new things every single day that I live. As a matter of fact, if you're not learning something new every day, another side tangent, then, just start digging a hole and it's time to put yourself 6 feet under, because that is the only way to live life, is by learning continually. And if you're not learning, I don't know what the point is, because I'm learning new stuff all the time. And I'm thankful that I'm able to learn something new, and I'm better off for it. And then I can pass that on to somebody else and then learn something new on top of that. So it's all good. All right, let's go ahead and answer. We actually have a couple emails, which is good. I thought maybe you guys were, didn't want to give us any emails or whatever. I just figured it's summertime and everybody's busy and on vacation and stuff. So this first email, let's see, this says, "Hello, Jeff and y'all at Podnutz. I know, Jeff, that y'all drives you crazy, and I do get a laugh out of it when you say it. I'll have you know, I lived in the South for a year. I was in North Carolina for 1 full year. And, it grows on you. Now, for the problems I'm having with a laptop computer that is running Windows 10 with 1803 build." Oh, yeah, I can tell you a couple of problems there. Very minor, but still. "There is a program that keeps starting up as Windows starts up, and I do not want it to start. Name of this program is Samsung Settings, and it is running in Task Manager as Settings. This program will let you change some of the system settings, for example, power management, display, sound, and input stuff. The client does not need this, as you can do this in Windows, but he still wants it. This comes down to the situation where you don't give them a choice. You just remove it. You would not believe, especially on residential computers, actually on business computers too, you would not believe all the stuff that I remove. And I can never remember one time where somebody said, "Hey, where did that DJ program go?" they loaded it on so long ago, they don't even remember. So I don't even put any of that junk back on. And something like this that's already done in Windows, if they wanted a shortcut to settings or something like that so they could do the same things, maybe I would set that up and do that for them, but I would just remove it. But anyways, here's a scenario where this person has tried some things, and we're going to see if we can add anything to this list to see if we can come up with some sort of solution, because I'd be at a loss too at this point. It says, "Here's what I've done. I looked at the task manager, it's start, and it is not listed there. I've run CCleaner, startup, and it is not listed there either. Interesting. Usually everything's listed in there. I have also done a Google and DuckDuckGo search, and there's a registry hack that did not work. Tried to do a shell hack. No joy. Using shell startup command, and all it would do was a Bing lookup." That's interesting. "Last but not least, there is no option within the program to disable the program from starting up. When I first answered this email back like an idiot, I didn't read through the whole list, and I said, hey, why don't you look in there and see if you can turn off startup from inside the program? But no, yeah, it didn't work. So I email them right back and go, hey, I probably should have read number 5. Sorry about that. All right, I did start the computer in safe mode, and it does not run. Okay. I disabled all the startups and reboot, and it still does not stop it from running. I'm out of ideas with this. Thank you for your help. I've been listening to y'all for about 5 years, and I still have fun with it. And also, y'all have too much fun. Yes, we do. Fun comes in as you talk about one subject and then go down into a rabbit hole that has nothing to do with the subject. That's mostly my fault. I just squirrel. However, that information is just as good. Thanks again. And this is from Robert's Computer Services, Robert Eiler. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. All right. Anything you guys can think of to start? Number one, I can't understand why a program would not be in startup.
So, first of all, in Windows, there's got to be at least 6 or 7 different startup locations. There's the system startup. There's the user startup. There's you can start things by task manager. I actually posted a program in the chat there. It's actually called Startup CPL. It was a program written by a gentleman named Mike Lynn. It is no longer supported. However, it still works, and it works great on all versions of Windows. I can tell you I've definitely used it. But essentially what happens is you install it. It puts a control panel applet in your control panel. And then once it's in the control panel, you'll need to run it as an administrator. There is also a portable version. But it essentially collects all the different locations of startup programs within Windows. And it sorts them into 6 or 7 different tabs. So you actually see the tab that's the startup folder, and you see the tab that's the system startup, and you see the tab that has all the task scheduled startup items. And from there, you can modify them, you can delete them, you can manage them all from this program. One of the things that I kind of got into, and you mentioned just remove the program. You don't necessarily have to remove the program to not have it start up. If Robert finds a way to have and I'm hoping this program works, if he finds a way to have that program starting up, he can always let the customer know, hey, if you ever need this program, it's like you said, Jeff, here's a little icon in your unused startup entries. Here's a shortcut to it. So it's still there. But yeah, I've eliminated it needing to start up when the computer starts. Startup CPL, great software. I've been using it for years. I haven't run into any issues with it. And, of course, it's free. I have yet to find another piece of free software out there that works well. The only other thing I can suggest is a program called AutoRuns. It's part of Microsoft's Cisternal suite. And it does the same thing. AutoRuns, it finds the different folders and different startup entries and kind of lists them all there. I'll put a link to AutoRuns in the chat as well.
Actually, him and I were emailing back and forth, and I think that was one of the things that he had done and had tried to stop it using AutoRuns, and then had restarted the computer after a couple times, and it came back up running, which is really odd to me, especially, like I said, for a Samsung. I'm assuming it's a Samsung laptop, being that it has that software installed on it. The only other thing I could think of myself was maybe it's attached to another piece of Samsung software that's just part of that program, but it's not really the whole program, especially if you're not seeing it in a startup.
So I was going to suggest AutoRuns as well. That's if turning it off, if it's not in Task Manager or turning it off their runs. Another point I was going to make, it looks like somebody in the chat had said Task Scheduler. That I was going to mention that as well, especially if it's starting after you think you disable it. It's very possible that there's a task set to launch it anyway. And if it's set at a scheduled time, whether it be on startup, user log on, specified time, whatever, it could still start there, even though it's not set for startup because it's being triggered differently. So you would want to go into Task Scheduler and make sure it's not running there as well. So for every new computer that we get in and sell, we wipe it and do a fresh install without all of the OEM bloat. We just don't want to deal with it. In this case, at this point, if I didn't find it in Task Scheduler or was able to stop it that way, and they don't need it, I would just uninstall it myself as well. It's not worth chasing.
Okay, that's that's what I think. I used to chase all these things and find all these neat little programs, and then I got to a point, and I'm not sure how long ago it was, where and John Dubinsky and I've talked about this in the past. We're like, less is more. And in this particular occasion or situation, I try to get rid of all that bloaty stuff that's gonna people just they don't use probably 10% of what the computer can actually do. Just like they don't use more than what 10% of Word can do or Excel or et cetera, et cetera. They use what they need it for, and that's all they need it for. So the more basic and simple you can keep it, the better it is. And you just tell the customer they don't know what they're talking about. And if you want, you can give them my number. I know, don't give them my number because I tell them the same thing.
Well, here's the thing, right? In my opinion, the most destructive thing on the computer is the browser. They already have that. They don't need anything else to click on.
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
Right.
All right, Robert, let us know either way, though, if either of those programs, and if you guys could send me an email after the show with those links, that would be awesome. I will add that into the show notes, and hopefully you can try that and see if that works for you. And if it does, let us know, or if it doesn't, let us know. All right. Email number 2. What is your go-to data recovery software for both Mac and Windows? I have an external hard drive with a Mac file format that needs recovery. And I will go ahead and, Adam, what do you use?
RStudio.
RStudio, okay.
So we'll clone the drive first or make an image with DD Rescue and Linux, and then we'll use RStudio. If that won't do it, we just send it out.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a little side thing. Greg says, Jeff doing show notes. Oh, my. Yeah, don't get too excited, man. Only if they send me the links and I put it in the show notes. Other than that, John Dubinsky's not here and ain't getting done. He is my man. All right. So, all right. That's a good way to do it. And Cody, what do you use?
So I actually used to use Kroll OnTrack data recovery software.
Like Canadian only or what? I've never heard of that before.
So Kroll is a Canadian company.
See, I knew
that does do data recovery. So basically, they obviously offer data recovery solutions, but then they offer pretty robust software. Now I have stopped using it because as Adam mentioned, he generally clones the disk and then does it. I found that Kroll didn't play too nicely at all with a clone disk in a virtual environment. Like if I virtually clone the disk, it didn't work. It would get hung up. I stopped troubleshooting it. Now to say what I use, so there's quite a bit of data recovery that I do for residential clients, and I'll still use the Kroll software, particularly if it's off a memory card or a flash drive or something like that. Anything beyond that, it generally does get sent out. I despise doing data recovery in-house. I mean, I'll do it, but it's not something that I enjoy doing, and it's not something that I generally want to subject myself to. But when I do that, the Kroll OnTrack software, it seems to work. Just be careful if you're virtually mounting clone drives. Other than that, I can't really speak to too many other pieces of software.
Okay.
Who do you send drives out to if you send them out?
So they do. A majority of my drives go to Kroll.
Okay.
For recovery, yeah. If the customer has a personal preference, for example, I've had 1 or 2 businesses that have dealt with data recovery in the past. In the case of these companies, it's been employee embedded drives, drives and embedded devices. So, whether it was in an Android phone or one of them was a Surface, they had their kind of preferred dealer. I do like OnTrack because they do everything from phones to flash drives to hard drives. I haven't sent them something that they have said, no, we don't recover this device. I mean, I've certainly gotten things that they couldn't recover, but they're pretty robust in what they do. I'll leave a link to their company in the show notes, and I'll send it along to Jeff.
Okay. We use when we send a drive out, we use a Canadian company called Recovery Force. So I didn't know if you had worked with them.
I see them posting a lot in the IT business owners group on Facebook. I've never dealt with them personally because I've already had a relationship with Kroll. But I've certainly come across him and looked at his setup.
Very good. And I'm sorry, this was from Edward Asante, and I had suggested, I said a lot of people like our studio. I know our good friend Paco Lebron has used that in the past, and when I was doing a podcast with Scott Moulton, that was one of the pieces of software that he suggested was our studio. And also I have used in the past is Reclaim Me Pro. Now it's a little costly, but once I think you can still save 50% on it by using the code Podnutz. They were a sponsor of the show periodically over the years. And, if you're doing data recovery, software style data recovery, I think it's a great piece of software. It does all the formats that are out there. And even the new Mac formats now, yeah, it does pretty much everything. And you can look at the data and kind of pull it out. And a lot of times I was laughing because Cody was like, I don't want to subject myself to hard drive recovery. I'm like, how hard is it? You plug the thing in and you hit a couple buttons and you walk away and let it chunk for 4 or 5 days and then come back to it.
It's honestly, for me personally, it's just a liability thing.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, I certainly have no problem having it sit in my toaster over the weekend, but I mean, data is data. We all know what data is. We all know what data means to other people. I just don't want to deal with it. It's another one of those things. I don't want to pull my own cables. I don't want to deal with data recovery.
And that's a good point too. And one of the things that you want to do is you don't want to try to pull this data from a dying drive. The drive is dying. You need to clone that drive immediately.
Absolutely.
And then off of a working hard drive, then go ahead and pull the data that it's able to basically get pulled off there. So that's the only safer way to do that. If not, you got to send it out to somebody like a Scott Moulton at myharddrivedied.com or, $300 data recovery or one of the others. And I don't, most of the time, I don't really send drives out because customers are too cheap and they're like, hey, it's gone. Paid $300 for what? Huh? $800? What? No, I'm not doing that. Well, I guess it wasn't that important then. I'm sorry you lost pictures from 20 years ago, but hey, it is what it is.
Now, Adam, is for your data recovery, it's not something that you use on like a white label basis. You send it to the company and the customer knows that it's going to this company. Or same question for you, Jeff, I guess.
Yeah. So very rarely do they ask. We tell them we're partnered with a clean room facility, and we don't do it. So we tell them that we do. If we can get it with software, this is our price. Otherwise, we're partnered with another company, and we have no problem telling them who it is. Usually, they don't ask. They don't care. They just want their data. So, we don't white label it. We don't hide it.
No, in part of that too is I'll put this as far as backup, because I've always had a problem with again, backup to me is a liability. Okay, so I use Carbonite. Now a lot of people are going, I don't want to use Carbonite. Well, whatever. Guess what? If there's a problem, I go to Carbonite and go, yeah, you're responsible for that now. Sorry, because their name's on it. I resell it and get a small commission for that, but it's not like, hey, I don't want the responsibility of trying to run a server in my basement or, even using Amazon services and stuff like that. There's a certain amount of liability. Now, somebody said to me, they said, well, that's what you have insurance for. I said, yeah, you have insurance, but you got to understand whether you have insurance or not. A lot of people just think, oh, it's free and clear. You're still going to get litigated against. And guess what? Most of the time, you still got to be involved in that. It's not like you can just go, I got insurance. It's going to pay for it. No, it doesn't work like that, people.
You also don't want to be put into a situation where you have to use your insurance. I mean, I certainly don't want to, call my car insurance company up for, every kid that runs into the side of my car on his bike, right? Like they're just going to jack my rates. But I think if you're operating on the logic that insurance will cover you or save you or just pay out when something goes wrong, that's maybe the wrong mindset to be carrying around.
I agree. It's funny, young people can learn things so readily, easy that other old people can't. No, that's good. It's a very good point. I'm glad you said that. All right, last email for the show before we move on. It says, hi, Jeff and crew. I wanted to say a bit thank you to yourself and the Podnutz crew for such a wonderful show. Well, thank you. I've been a listener since late last year and don't know how I got by without your podcast before this. Oh, I'm sure there was a way. Like yourself, I have a full-time job and do computer repair as a business owner after hours and have regular client base, which keeps me busy. Like yourselves, I'm very passionate about computer repair and am always looking for solutions or more options to offer my customers and ways to improve my services. That's good. A lot of people don't want to do that. Something I've been struggling with here in Australia. Oh, there's the problem right there. Is trying to find similar solutions to what you have over in the U.S. and feel somewhat disadvantaged in some ways with what's on with what we have to offer on our own shores. Perhaps I'm just disconnected and need to find the right contacts. Either way, since listening to the show, I've been really interested with what you've discussed about the Watt box and have searched high and low to find a similar solution in Australia or a wholesaler in Australia who will do an Australian option of the Watt box. I've also struggled with finding a suitable partner or wholesaler for UTM devices, Unified Threat Management, and options for my customers. As I want to offer reliable security solutions to my customers, I hear a lot about Arachnus and have found Westan to be a wholesaler for them in Australia. However, they are in the Western Australian company and are almost 400 kilometers away. I don't even know how far that is. That's like a bazillion miles away from my location north of Adelaide, South Australia. Hope I said that right. So postage is a killer. Yeah, I can see that. That's a long way. I'm also really keen on finding someone here in Australia who sells Calyptix UTM devices here in Australia. I keep hearing wonderful things about them from John and would love to give them a go. But I struggle to find someone in Australia that I can pick up a trial product or begin a partnership with. I guess my question is, do you know anyone here in Australia through your contacts that may be able to help point me in the right direction when it comes to some of my above questions? As always, I look forward to next week's show. I thank you and the team for putting together such an engaging and helpful show. You hit on all the relevant topics, even for myself over the ditch. So I guess that says a lot about what you must be doing in your own backyard. Thanks again. And I hope someday soon to join you on a secret Facebook group as a Patreon supporter. All the best. Kindest regards, Sean Johnson from Valley Home IT. Thank you, Sean, for the email. And definitely, I'm glad you're getting something out of the show. These are emails that definitely pump me up. Now, to your question, no, I do not have a contact that can do overseas stuff. But here's the wonderful thing about a global podcast. We do literally have people all over the world in many different countries that listen to the show, which is really cool if you think about it. Now, hopefully somebody is listening to the sound of my voice right now. If you have a contact either in Australia or somebody that delivers to Australia that has some of these products that were talked about, and there's an easy way to do it, because I'm not real sure on the whole distribution thing between the U.S. and other countries and how that works. Even Canada and stuff has their own rules. So if there's anybody out there that knows any information about how to get stuff like the stuff we talk about in this show to Australia, or maybe there's some sort of wholesale distributor that distributes there that's a little closer, then that would be good. And you can definitely let us know. Podnutz@podnutz.com and I can forward that information. You guys have any thoughts on any distributors when it comes to overseas? I know you're kind of across the you're across the line there in Canada, but not really that far.
So I mean, I've ran into this myself with funny enough, File 8 and Snap AV, because they are not the most Canadian friendly with their services. I have yet to. I mean, I have yet to run into something I couldn't get though. Like, I don't know if it's just the proximity of, you know, Canada being closer to the States. And again, I may be ignorant when it comes to the landscape of Australia, but, you know, you mentioned in the email there was someone that was 400 kilometers away for equipment. Is next day shipping like not a thing? I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but I mean, I feel like if it's on the same continent, you know, I don't know. I don't know how difficult, you know, getting that equipment would be. That said, I mean, there's definitely things that I've had to look around for being in Canada, because, you know, by default, a lot of companies' main websites, Ubiquity is a great example. They have all their products there. You can buy all their products, but it redirects to a US store. And when it gets redirected, it says, you can't buy this stuff in Canada. And then I have to phone up TDL or whoever I use here in Canada. I mean, I'm willing to bet the suppliers are out there in Australia. I mean, there's honestly been times where I've spent, you know, an hour or two trying to find a supplier for a particular piece of equipment. So I can certainly say that from my experience. I don't know if I have any suggestions on that topic though. Like, I mean, I know companies are generally willing to work with you overseas, particularly if you can commit to actually buying a specific amount of product. But, you know, buying 10 routers, 20 routers in bulk isn't always a viable option for people.
Right. Exactly. All right. Yeah, that is some good advice, though. Adam?
Yeah. So I was curious, so I Googled it. 400 kilometers is just under 250 miles. So, yeah, it's not.
It's actually 4,000 kilometers.
Oh, I thought you said 400. Yeah.
So that makes a big difference. But so yeah. Okay. Anyway, so being in the United States, I don't really have these issues as so. What I can say is also post the question to the Facebook group if you're in it. The other thing is, if you're not a member on Technibble, I suggest joining there. There's quite a few Australian people there that are probably going to have a good answer for you.
That's a good point.
Yeah, sure. That's a real good point. Yeah. Well, yeah, Bryce is from Australia, so
yep.
We'll see him in a couple weeks here. Oh no, he's not coming this time. But yeah, so Bryce has got if he would know, because he's been doing that in, you know, that business for years in that country. He would probably have some of the contact. But yeah, Technibble forums is definitely a place to go for that. All right. I think, yeah, and I don't know, as far as, you know, are there places like D&H overseas? I know Canadians got their own, you know, wholesalers that will basically buy stuff. And Cody, we won't talk about your post office box just across the border, so you can get product into the country. We won't let the border crossing know about that. Not that I would know anything about that, but you know. So yeah, I don't really have an answer, and I would just I like what these guys said. Yeah, definitely check out Technibble, and if anybody else has a response or a wholesaler that they know in that country, or that can supply to that country, that doesn't charge you an arm and a leg, and that's always the thing too. Quite honestly, Cody, you and I probably don't live that far away from each other. It is a generalization, but you definitely have that thing called Canadian tax, which you know, you're going to pay 2 to 3 times the amount of what I pay here in the U.S. And it's unfortunate because you're not getting more product, but you're just, I don't know why.
So one of the things that that kind of drives me nuts is Amazon. I would love it if, someone posts a product, whether I'm looking at it on Reddit, whether I'm just clicking into it from somewhere. I would love it if Amazon could use AI or something, or figure out a way to redirect to a similar product on the Canadian version, because I can't tell you how many times I open up a product and see, oh, it's $39.99. Great. Let me order it. Realize I'm on the Amazon.com instead of Amazon.ca. Go to Amazon.ca, look it up, and it's $85.
Oh,
And it happens on a nearly constant basis. Like, you'd think that I would know better by now, but it always hits me. And I'm like, so now I'm like, okay, this is definitely the US site, because there's no way that this tablet is this cheap. The Kindle Fire, if you want to see a great example of it, look up any of the Kindle Fires, look at the Canadian and the US version of it. And I think you're a $30 or $40 difference on them.
man. Definitely a bummer there. All right. So hopefully that will help you, Sean. And hopefully you can find some more information out. And if anybody knows, they can let us know and we can pass that along. All right, guys. I think we have had a jam-packed show. So I'll tell you what, on the way out, Cody, if you want to let people know where they can find you at, go ahead and do that now.
So the best way to reach me is to email me. You can email me at hello@itnorth.tech. You can also give me a call. I'll talk to you once in a while, 705-219-1200. If you're calling from the States, don't forget to add the 1.
You are a brave soul putting your number on the air. But yeah, that's good. All right. So Adam, let people know where they can find you.
Sure. Tag me in the Facebook group or email acarpenter@itproiowa.com.
Awesome. And great having you guys. Great topic again. And I think we've covered a lot of interesting things to definitely think about. And that's what we do here, is just try to make you think and, maybe solve some problems as a think tank. All right. You can come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/CRP live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. And I do sometimes read it. You can send email to podnutz@podnutz.com, or you can leave a voicemail at 734-335-1000. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.